Do you have the right stuff? Then blast off to Janet's Planet Virtual Astronaut Academy. Learn from real astronauts, real pilots, real space experts, and real engineers. Welcome to Janet's Planet, where we're traveling at the speed of thought.
Hello and welcome back to Space Matters. Today, we're featuring Miss Janet Ivy of Janet's Planet and Dr. Mark Wagner of Aries Learning. We're going to explore what education in the future may look like and what the future of work is going to look like. Stay tuned.
I think that's very true. I mean, when they see, Dr. Cyan Proctor, is a fine example. When you see the Inspiration 4 crew, that it's like what might take a traditional NASA astronaut 10 years before their first flight to the ISS. SpaceX is training them within, 6 months, 6-7 months here, and then they'll fly in September and they'll orbit the Earth, and, it'll be an amazing mission. I mean, those folks that are having that opportunity are going to have an amazing megaphone to go, if I can do this, you can do this. So I think stories like that are going to emerge. I mean, Kayla Barron was just announced that she's part of Crew 3 for SpaceX. She's been in the, NASA Astronaut Corps. I think the more that we tell the stories and, even thinking about NASA did a great job with Behind the Spacecraft on the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover. And you saw Heather Bottoms, who used to be a rocket on Broadway, and now she's working on a Mars rover. Or you see Diana Trujillo, who came here at 17 from Colombia and, has her space dreams coming true because she's working on the robotic arm of that Mars 2020 Perseverance. To me, it's like we need educators out there who go, wow, this might be a really interesting way. Space might be that beautiful kind of doorway that sort of is that gateway to kids wanting to do technology or learn more about coding or finding out about engineering, and using that sort of kind of as that entry point to those other multiple things that you want them to explore. But, Axiom Space astronaut Peggy Whitson is a consultant for them. I mean, I've got a 12-year-old right now, Nathan Aerospace. I gave you a shout out. He's 12. He's already decided. He's made his logo. That's a space company. He's even talking to others in the group if they want to come and work for him. So I don't know. He may be solving something here in the next year or two. So I think the stage is well set. And what we have to do as people who want this next generation to be that multiplanetary species, and we want to see them back on the moon and onto Mars and wherever else their hearts desire, Lagrange point 5 and making Gerard O'Neill's, visions come true. We just have to keep telling them and showing them and telling, this is somebody in space. And this is somebody in space. And yes, it's like, I'm an educator and I'm here to tell you about history of space. You'd mentioned kind of like the Artemis Accords, and I've been fortunate enough to have somebody like Sean Case with Space Court come and talk to the kids about and then afterwards it was like, all right, here's the debate. And we kind of have we'd go over what space law would look like and have those conversations. And it's very funny. 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders go, well, why wouldn't you want to just get along in the first place? And you're like, and out of the mouths of babes. So, yeah. So I think we're in good hands. I just think it's going to take, and Mark, I'd love your thoughts, and Rhonda as well. We just got to keep saying it. And maybe we just have to keep creating the invitation. Is that more true? I don't know.
Yeah, I think your example about the Inspiration 4 crew is a perfect one, because they were, I think, deliberately chosen from a wide variety of disciplines so that that story could exist, right? Also, while you're talking, it made me think of even very modest plans for space settlement. So, I was sort of making the point before, you don't have to be an astronaut, you don't have to be an engineer to be involved with space. I think that's a huge passion of Rhonda's in particular, and everybody can benefit from GPS satellites and Starlink satellites, and there's going to be a whole lot of innovation built on that stuff, right? Beyond what there's already there. But if you look at even a very modest space settlement, the Moon Village Association is planning this settlement for 125 people at the south pole of the moon. So it's near Shackleton Crater. They get sunlight all year round for solar power. They've got water ice in the shadows of the craters for mining. They've got the Earth hanging above the horizon year round. And they're planning a community for 125 people, and they want that to be multi-generational. And you start doing the math, and real quick you realize if it follows the same percentages of the Earth, they're looking at 25 kids that would be at school age. So that's a one-room schoolhouse. We've definitely solved that problem on the Earth before, but that gets real interesting real quick. But you start talking about doing that on the moon, and those kids having to get a lot of their learning experiences remotely. And it's only a 2.5 second delay from the Earth, but you do have to think that through. Like, you think, oh, they can use VR. Well, what happens to an Oculus, VR headset when the servers are on, at Facebook back on the Earth, and you can't deal with that delay, right? So and even an AI like Alexa or Google Assistant or something, they're going to need lots of local resources to support that. But most importantly, how are you going to solve problems, the relationship problems? How are the kids going to be connected to the experts that they need? Distance learning, asynchronous learning will work great on the moon, but how do they, what are they going to do for physical education, exercise? Is there going to be a pool inside? Are they going to learn to run outside in spacesuits? Are they going to moonboard, and how dangerous will that be? And there's all these questions that start coming when you start thinking of that. But it makes you realize they're going to need a sort of full complement of everybody. Mm-hmm. Like Jerry O'Neill said we need cooks and so on, right? But and even Ed Kiker's article in the Beyond Earth book, Rhonda, where he said you're going to have plants and you're going to have art. And what the Moon Village folks, I don't think had really considered before we started working together, was the idea of, like, you're going to need a teacher at least for those 25 kids. Maybe you want at least an elementary teacher and a secondary teacher, or maybe you're going to have some subject matter experts. They can connect with experts, peers and experts back on Earth. But you're going to, all of a sudden now, okay, so we're going to need educators where we're going. And that maybe opens up interest to a group of people that wouldn't have otherwise. And you were touching on space law and governance, and that's going to open up interest to people who wouldn't be otherwise. And I think the more, this is my bias for sure, but the more educators we can prepare to talk about those things and have these sorts of conversations with their classes, I think the better. And that's not just like one special school like Aries or one special educator like Janet traveling, right? How can we prepare lots and lots of educators to be confident talking about space with their kids? I think that's a real interesting problem. Speaking of somebody who's done teacher professional development for 20 years.
No, but it's, go ahead, Rhonda.
Well, what I was going to say, and I want to hear your comment. So if it's too much off topic, please come back to it. One of the things that I think is critical in spreading the word of relevancy with regards to why we need to go into space and why we need to get these things done is I firmly believe that everything that we learn how to do efficiently, well, and affordably in space has a direct spend on improving the quality of life on Earth. If we are more efficient with energy systems and agriculture on orbit or on other planetary bodies, that information and those methodologies translate directly to Earth so that we can have cleaner, more efficient approaches with at least the same amount of abundance, if not more, especially with regards to energy and agriculture, but also with other factors. And so in trying to encompass the lay population that may not have a significant interest in space or space activities and not understand the imminent economic gains of it, how do we share that conversation with them more productively, especially through education?
Yeah,
Well, go ahead, Mark.
Oh no, definitely your turn, Janet. Sorry.
Oh no, it's just again, it just comes down to we have to be the megaphone, and we may get tuned out sometimes, but it's like we have to continually go, hey, you like those radial tires? Space shuttle. Do you like those weather satellites? Do you like knowing when there are superstorms coming? Thank those people who put those up in space for you. We have to think about the space debris and how we can mitigate that. I mean, Crew Dragon 2 nearly got, hey, sorry you can't sleep, get back in your suits because we've got space debris. I think it's just that we have to keep saying it and going, if we go to space and figure out how to mitigate radiation, we come back and we solve some problems with cancer and the after effects of that. We figure out how to create individualized medicine for every astronaut or child or family that's on the moon for any given time, and we go, no, you're metabolically need this or you need this, then we improve that. I mean, when we think about, even most people don't even know there's a water filtration system that's used on the ISS that they were needing to figure out in Tanzania. It's like, thousands of children die and because of disease-borne illness that's that happens because they drink tainted water. Well, there's something that they use on the International Space Station that literally within 12 to 24 hours, they can tell if everything is a go. And, they recycle 85% of the water on the ISS. And so, again, I think it's just telling these stories, sharing the stories, reminding people that the benefits that we and the things we've learned in space come back and do ultimately spread out, to the grander globe, then probably most people even think about it. I think once they hear about it, they go, whoa, that's super cool. I think what I want to do so much is just elevate the topic and have these be the stories that are told in the news, and whoa, I didn't know that they're using some water filtration test that they use on the ISS to make sure that the folks in developing countries know where all the clean water. They've now developed an app so that on the app, after these tests have been done, you can refer to the app and there are clean water sites. So I think it's just a matter of getting or calling and, again, the invitation to, hey, come spread the word, because there's some really cool stories to be told that maybe you just haven't heard of yet. I mean, astronaut Joe Acaba, he was on the International Space Station when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, and he is of Puerto Rican descent. And so while he knew he couldn't physically do anything for Puerto Rico, he did do an ISS downlink that kind of kept the kids, going, and they were using ham radios and everything else to have that conversation. When he was back on Earth, he traveled to Puerto Rico and went school to school. And so, yeah, it's like, it's only one person, but if we can get sort of a congregation, if you will, of folks who are like, hey, let me take that story. That's pretty powerful, that an astronaut on the ISS was looking down, and it's like, as they passed by, Hurricane Maria on the ISS, it was taking up a huge swath, and the lights of Puerto Rico could definitely dimmed after Maria went by, that he's worried about them, that gave those children hope. I don't know. I think we just have to learn the stories. We have to share those stories. We have to ask other educators, share these stories, because these are powerful and maybe they'll inspire, and maybe not everybody. So we come up with a cavalcade of stories that we continue to share with folks. I'm not sure. I mean, I wish I knew what the magic bullet was, but I think it just comes with, again, relationship to relationship, and we keep sharing these great stories and narratives.
Yeah, seeing the growth and the impact of this sort of space education community, if you will, over, especially during the pandemic. I think that Frank White's roundtable started at the start of the pandemic and brought a lot of those people together on a regular basis, and seeing how much each one of them is doing in their field and in their world, and in some cases with the students that they're working with is inspiring. But the other thing, Rhonda, that you hit on that I think is important, because satellites are already revolutionizing all kinds of industries, and the weather, like Janet said, and being able to study the ecology on the Earth and that sort of thing. And pollution and all that. But when you start talking about space solar power, that's going to be a whole nother revolution. And that's going to matter to everybody here, not just people who are interested in space and wanting to go to space. And it's going to mean a lot of industry here in terms of building the infrastructure for it on this side, and industry in orbit, building the stations. But it's going to change the equation for energy use on the planet, particularly in developed countries, but even here, we're just getting excited about electric cars, and they're so much cheaper and cleaner to operate than traditional cars. But then you have the question of like, well, where's the power in your neighborhood coming from? It's coming from a dirty coal plant or a nuclear plant or whatever it might be. And if we're able to just get that at a fraction of a cost again from space, that's mind-boggling. I don't know that I don't think I actually mentioned it earlier, but Rhonda, I took that class with John Menkins on the space solar power, and the equations are cut and dry. It's gonna be cheaper and better in pretty much the same way you look at an electric car today, and you're like, a combustion car can't hold a candle to it. It's cheaper and better and cleaner and safer, and if we can move all of our industry in that direction. First of all, that's a lot of good work for a lot of people in a lot of industries, but then better for the planet too. And there's going to be a lot of science done around that could be interesting to kids.
Absolutely.
If only there was an inexhaustible energy source nearby.
Yeah, if only.
So with that, with so many things going on, and obviously we are no longer waiting for leapfrog technologies, and we are no longer waiting to be enabled. We are enabled, and we can be very transformative simply by applying the technologies that exist today. And so having said that, how do each of us do a better job of extending that invitation? Because I think that at the end of it all, there's still, it can be intimidating, and it can be daunting, and folks who have always wanted to explore space or look into what work in space industry could look like, and if there's a place for them, most people beg out because they think that they're not qualified, or they think they don't have the education, or they feel like they'd have to start all over again, when actually they bring unique skill sets that are absolutely relevant and applicable right now. And not even scratching the surface of how, as Janet was saying, studies for application haven't even been created yet that will be sought after in the next 5 years. How do we extend our invitation? How do we become more inclusive?
One of the things that if I can make this happen for my summer camps, we're going to have a welder and a plumber come, because you got to weld things. They have to go and teach kids how to solder, and again, safety protocols, all of that. And the same thing for plumbing, to understand PVC, again, it's all science, but to honor these careers that we don't necessarily, our first thought isn't go, wow, a welder, is that a space career? You bet it is. Mm-hmm. And they get paid super well. And you bet it is, because we have to have recycling of water and, pipes and understanding of all of that. One of the things that I would say to anybody out there is that, as a daughter of a plumber, everything we do has that bit of science, whether it's you're a seamstress and you know how to measure and math and cut and make, whether you're a plumber and you understand the physics of water and volume and all of these kinds of things. But there are programs like the NASA Solar System Ambassador thing. You're only required, you can submit to that usually I think it's every September, and you'll get trained. You get these, weekly, bi-weekly trainings that then you go out to your local school or your Rotary Club or your library. And to be a NASA Solar System Ambassador, that doesn't mean just the planets, that means all of NASA's missions, but you have to basically give 4 free talks in a year. National Space Society has their own kind of like National Space Ambassadors. And so there are opportunities. And if anybody's out there listening, it's like, well, I've always wanted to maybe something, attend the Mars Innovation Forum for Explore Mars next week. And that is a plug, and I won't apologize. It's March 25 through 27. You can go to exploremars.org. We'll have our Human and Mars Summit, in September. We hope to have at least a hybrid, hopefully a bit of that in person. National Space Society coming up June 25th through 27th. I'm on the board of governors there. So it's like, find that organization and reach out. What we try to do, whether it's Janet's Planet, Explore Mars, or National Space Society, it's like we've got some engaged people, and we want you to come and learn. And maybe if you just come and learn and you share with your grandkids, hey, that's a lot. And then think about what your grandkids might share. My grandma or my grandpa is really super cool, and he knows a lot about space, and he just helped me build this thing with circuits or connects, or I don't know. But I just would say to anybody out there listening, I want to extend the invitation. Get connected. And if you don't hear back from us immediately via LinkedIn or an email address or something like that, just know that we might be a little busy, but we want you. And so attend, and especially when we can all meet together in person again, it'll be nice. It's like, I love meeting people. We've got people who have been coming to Humans to Mars Summit for a long time. And they said, I feel a little embarrassed to be here. I'm not a this or I'm not a that. And I'm like, I'm not that either. With my bachelor's degree in music and theater, who knew that I could too, go on to kind of choose that education kind of path for myself. But I would just say, be bold. I have found, and I hope you find this too, I have found the space community to be incredibly embracing of those who share similar interests, incredibly interested in creating a world and that is interested in exploration and moving, humanity up and out there. So, yeah, reach out. And if somebody doesn't answer, reach out to the next person or the next community. But I think it's a combination of things. Like, take that first step if it's something you really love to do. I think we're all, I don't know, I'll speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure it's true for all of you. We're all doing 5 or 6 jobs now and trying to find, and I don't even know if there's such a thing as work-life balance anymore. I don't think that I've known that for a while. I'm looking forward to attempting to maybe find a little bit of that in this summertime. But if you're interested,
while you've got all your camps going.
That's right. In a weird way, being in person will do that. But I mean, come. The doors are open. There's places like Yuri's Night, and it's like you can celebrate the World Space Party with fantastic folks like Loretta Whitesides. I promise you will find that group of people that you go, oh, these are my people. And then if you find an organization and you're like, I'm not sure, go to the next one. Because it's like, it's really, I think for anybody, whether you're a student, there's SEDS and SEDS, and I forget exactly what, do you guys know what exactly that acronym stands for? It's Space Exploration, but it's a student-led organization for, college students. So if you want it, you can find it, I'm pretty sure. But what would you guys say?
Well, I like that you made it an invitation yourself, like that That's everybody. There's your invitation from Janet Ivy.
Yeah, come on in.
But yeah, it made me think of a number of other organizations too. Like the Moon Village Association is a global group of people working toward designing, deliberately designing that community. Even the folks at Asgardia are working on an E-Academy, education effort, and there's groups like that all over the world. And Space Foundation, by the way, has a massive conference every August, and they're expecting to go back to face-to-face this year at about half capacity. So I think it's normally about 15,000. They're talking about maybe 7, but if something you said triggered that thought in me was, yes, when we can get back together again, and if you want to attend these events, that's another good one.
There's AIAA. If you're a teacher, you can become a member for free and receive all of their benefits and lots of their educational things. For Space Foundation, you can apply to be a teacher liaison, and you're gifted with lots and lots of curriculum aids and things like that. There are other opportunities. It's like NASA did a great job through NASA Next Gen STEM with, Launch America or the Countdown to Mars Toolkit. And then you can apply to participate that if you're an educator or a teacher. And sometimes it's just like, and God bless all teachers. I know we just had Teacher Appreciation Week a couple weeks ago, but as you guys near the end of the school year, we bow before you. You have done a Herculean task, a warrior goddess task as well, out there shifting and moving and doing everything possible to make sure these kids still made it through a year. And so kudos to all of you. And your plate was already full. So maybe as things resume to some normalcy or the new normal, whatever that may look like, and you want to fill in some space, know that there are some avenues out there to do that.
Because so many changes this year, yeah, and it's hard right now, and we're running up against it where people are not ready yet for adding something to that plate. But Rhonda, I was also thinking about your question from a sort of systemic standpoint. So I think it's great to invite everyone to participate, but there was also sort of this idea of like, what can we do to create more of those conversations and reach more people and make it more inclusive. And I think that's a good way to look at it. I was thinking about with Aries, we've gotten really good at making Facebook ads, right? But they've got to be targeted towards parents who might be interested in sending their kids to a school like this. And sort of out of necessity, we wind up targeting demographics like people who like Wired magazine or who have liked SpaceX or something like that. And it's this sort of self-perpetuating cycle. To go find people that are interested in space, we have to pick certain demographics to focus on. But when you're not buying ads, the idea of meeting kids or people where they're at is totally different. And we have, if all goes well, a project coming together with the local school district, which is always particularly gratifying because you don't often get to be the boon bringer in your own neighborhood. But when we talked to the superintendent here in Irvine about it, well, look, we've got this space, we've got this program. How might this benefit the kids here in Irvine? He didn't want to move kids around and bust them, and like we did in Hawaii. But we started talking about the Alternative Education Center. They've got a amazing alternative education center here, and they've got a bunch of programs there because they've got their credit recovery kids that are just trying to get back on track and graduate high school. But guess what? This sort of program and this sort of topic is a great way to light their fire and hook a lot of those kids. They also have like a very elite program where this is your your professional figure skaters and things like this that are doing more of an independent study and using that campus as a hub. And those kids have the flexibility to do great things in the Moonshot Laboratory. And you've got, your hospital home study kids, and you've got the kids who are doing the Irvine Virtual Academy, for instance. So that's been a reaction to the pandemic, but they can go into the Alternative Education Center and they can do their science classes or meet their music teacher, that sort of thing. So a lot of flexibility there. So it may not be every school out the gate, but man, what about alternative education programs? And what about meeting, those kids that already have a little bit of flexibility or a little bit different scenario where whether it's, credit recovery or professional ice skating. Like, how can we capture those kids and meet them where they're at? I think that might be an interesting semi-systemic approach to answering Rhonda's question and reaching more kids. Looking for the people, we say it a lot of time in education technology, like getting the low-hanging fruit. Right? I think there's so much work to be done. We might as well focus on the low-hanging fruit and finding kids that are already in a flexible program or already have a flexible situation might not be a bad place to start.
And I'll tell you one of the most, well, maybe not surprising parts of the kind of statistics. A lot of my kids fell on the ADD, ADHD, anxiety disorder, somewhere on an ASD kind of spectrum. And that is a great community of kids that have been empowered in this virtual landscape to kind of have some more autonomy, so that when they are having a moment of anxiety, they turn their camera off and they can privately chat. Or, I feel a great victory with this one student who, when he first joined the class, his parents were trying to keep him from eating all the Oreos. And so, but it's just been daily. And he loves to interrupt. I love him to pieces. He's a great interrupter. And I'll go, yes. Sometimes I go ahead and say, yes, my sweet. Yes. Or can you hold that thought there, buddy, old pal? And, it's like when we've seen this over the last, I guess he's been with us about 6 months now, and you see this growth, and he's like, I'm really trying not to interrupt. And I'm like, I'm loving that you're even aware. Let's go with that. But the mom wrote to me and said, traditional education didn't work for him. And we've struggled a little bit with homeschool. This is the first kind of like happy time that he can't wait to get there. He will stop playing video games, which we can't even, like, you're what? I gotta go be with my people on Janet's Planet or whatever. And so again, I think also finding those communities of kids that might not always have felt embraced in that normal classroom or felt friendship or kinship, and you also create space for that. So I think it's so multi-layered, and I don't know that any one program is going to solve all of these issues. So that's why it's a great time. It's like, if you're working with inner city kids, or if you're working with rural kids, or if you're working with kids that have learning awesomeness, wherever your path tends to lead. It just was very interesting. Pretty much about 65% of the kids that I had would have fallen between ADD, ADHD, anxiety, or other things. So, but maybe that's what we need to start embracing, is that we all have a little bit of learning awesomeness and just go ahead and go, yeah, we're all a little quirky. So, which is fine, which makes us awesome. So yeah, I don't know.
My opinion of that too is to start introducing a culture that this is a right, this is a birthright. You don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to qualify to participate. It is the human experience that everyone is entitled to. That's kind of my take on that. So having said, what comes next? What's in the future for Janet's Planet and Aries Learning?
Mark?
Yeah, I keep imagining Janet's going to get a planet someday.
Oh my God! I cannot wait, kids.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
What I mean by the future is, do you have future plans? Are you integrating new approaches and adaptive concepts so we're able to accommodate more people in these conversations and accommodate more kids in these conversations? Do either of you have anything in that pipeline that you want to share?
Well, I mean, Aries Learning is all new. It's built on, I mean, there's no overnight success. It's built on a lot of other successes, but if anybody is watching and wants to check it out, arieslearning.com, it's, we're open for registration. We're seeking partnerships, we're seeking mentors, we're seeking funding for scholarships and that sort of thing, and partnerships with school districts, because we can build a similar program, similar space in the school district. So all of those possibilities are open, and we are looking for synergy everywhere we can. So if there's any opportunities for that in your work, definitely reach out. The other thing I should mention, just because I'm excited about it, I definitely can't send anybody to a pre-sale link or anything, but after my year with the Kepler Space Institute, I should have a book to show for it in August. So a book on space education, so a relevant topic at least, and it's sort of organized around. The first section is part of what we talked about today with preparing kids for humanity's multi-planet future. The next section is looking at what happens when we get there. I mean, you heard me talking a little bit today about a school at the Moon Village. So what are the consequences of educating kids on the moon or on Mars, which really surprising consequences. That'd make a whole nother fun podcast. Or on an O'Neill habitat. What are the possibilities if we're actually educating kids in space? And that's interesting. And then the third part is focused on essentially it's how do we prepare the adults and the educators and leaders for all of that? And that gets into school governance, but also moral leadership and ethics and philosophy and that inclusiveness that we're going to need to be more successful at this than we've been at some other expansions in past history. But I'm excited about it. I think we're only at the beginning of this topic and this work. Speaking as a lifelong educator and lifelong space enthusiast, I think this is only the beginning of those two things really coming together and causing great things to happen. So,
well, I can't wait to see it come online. Remember, Aries Education. I might have to see if I can ever volunteer a time or two for you guys.
I am hoping so. Yeah.
As far as the future of Janet's Planet, well, the kids have spoken. Basically, this coming Friday, 2 days from now, or this week, I should say. Let me go back and re-edit that for you there, Rhonda, in the editing process. In the coming days, we will celebrate a graduation, and the kids have spoken. Anytime that I've said in the last couple of weeks, hey guys, we're going to take a little break, they're like, oh, like their arms are going to fall off if we don't meet online virtually. So we're going to take a small pause, and then my sort of thing of like going, Miss Janet still needs just a little bit of time. And but it's like, even today, I was like, we'll meet a couple of times a week in the afternoon. And they're like, well, can we make sure that it's 2 hours? Like, all right. So, going forward in the fall, we are looking at continuing to have the Janet's Planet Virtual Online Academy, still teaching space and science. My goal is to probably divvy up the teaching kind of responsibilities a little bit more, so I have a bit more autonomy on my schedule and some other things and projects I'd like to get accomplished. But we're still in the planning stages, so there will be a big TBD or coming soon, and hopefully enrollment beginning late August, 1st of September. And again, those things might look a lot differently because as kids head back into something more routine than has been for the last 15 months, that could look differently. So we're still in a process. I feel like the same way. It's like, I'm the planet that's been around for 21 years and we're still trying to figure it out. So, but I feel like the kids that are currently part of the academy and want to continue have spoken, and I don't think they're going to let me get off the hook. Let me off the hook, as I should say.
It's a good thing when you see where the traction is, right? You can go that direction.
You're like, that's where the wind is blowing. I suppose I'll go that way.
Well, thank you to you both so much today for your time, your thoughts, your experiences, and moving forward, Space Matters will continue to check in with you and get updates and let our audience know what you're engaged in and how they might be able to participate.
Thanks for having us, Rhonda.
Yes, sorry.
Oh no, just gonna say thanks for having us, Rhonda, and always great to be in a conversation with Janet. So really, really great discussion for both of you. Thank you.
No, as everyone can see, my own quirk is I'm like, I'm trying to, it's all jumbled up and I'm trying to get the thought out there. But thank you, Rhonda, for having us. And, let me just end with, if you're interested, come find us. Find your space family. Find that place that feels good. And it's like, come on in. The space is fine, I guess.
Absolutely. That was another fantastic conversation. Thank you, Dr. Mark Wagner, and thank you, Janet. You both are fantastic friends, and I appreciate the support.